Welcome to the TELUS Originals DocTalks, a series of talks dedicated to craft, themes, and ideas behind TELUS Originals documentaries with the people behind and in front of the camera. I am your host, Sabrina Rani Furminger, and for this episode, we'll be talking to Ecko Aleck of the Nklaka'mak Nation, Alfonso Salinas of the s-yéwyáw Nation, and Charlene SanJenko of the Splatsin Band of the s-yéwyáw Nation about their film, s-yéwyáw, AWAKEN. In the film, Ecko, Alfonso, and Charlene learn and document the traditional and cultural teachings and legacies of their elders, including the impacts of genocide resulting from Canada's Indian residential school system. Calling the audience's attention to the filmmaking process of narrative collaboration between an Indigenous and settler team, this character-driven documentary connects the transformative stories of 3 Indigenous multimedia changemakers and their 4 elders. Infused by Indigenous ceremony, s-yéwyáw AWAKEN walks alongside the process of intergenerational healing. It demonstrates how healing people heals the land, and healing the land heals people. As the trio state in the opening title sequence, the teachings of our Indigenous elders are needed now more than ever to navigate a changing world. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we do, it is my great honor to tell you about our 3 guests. Ecko Aleck is a Nklaka'mak artist, founder, and CEO, raised with the s-yéwyáw Nation and currently living on Pentlatch Nation lands. Ecko is a modern-day shapeshifter with digital arts, a storyteller through movement, and a medicine woman of the heart. On her mission to support all people and the planet to return to a natural rhythm of well-being, Ecko has gathered a toolkit of knowledge that she carries forward into the ever-evolving transformation of her healing journey and her business, Sacred Matriarch Creative. Since the launch of SMC, she has won multiple awards for speaking dreams into existence. Alfonso Salinas is a s-yéwyáw Nation member and the traditional wellness coordinator for the nation. In his role, he creates programs to practice s-yéwyáw traditions and opportunities for those who want to pass down their gifts. Alfonso received his drum from his grandfather in 2009 to become a song carrier. A graduate of the Indigenous Filmmaker Program at Capilano University, Alfonso worked for the s-yéwyáw Communications Department and produced the Voices of s-yéwyáw TV series. Later, he became a guide in Stanley Park, teaching visitors the history and traditions of Coast Salish people. Alfonso continues to document important events for the nation today. Charlene SanJenko is an Indigenous storyteller, impact producer, and media visionary. Born in the Splatsin Band of the s-yéwyáw Nation, Charlene believes in creating from a place of collective genius, celebrating cohesive partnerships that bring stories of hope and possibility alive. Charlene leads a team at Regen Media who is introducing a new approach to align progressive creative projects with strong brands with the intent of striking partnerships and investment to propel lasting success for all involved. She holds a solid reputation in the social impact space with a former corporate background in investment services, marketing and communications, and impact production. Ecko Aleck, Alfonso Salinas, Charlene SanJenko, welcome to TELUS Originals DocTalks. It's remarkable to see you all on my screen, especially after having watched the documentary. But how did the 3 of you find each other?
I can go because I think I'm the weaver here. So Alfonso and I have been good friends since our youth. I moved to his traditional territory and grew up in his hometown, and we've been pals for a good portion of our lives together. So naturally, we evolved in our relationship, and both of us ended up as cultural guides together. When Alfonso was in film school, I would come and visit and partake in some of the work he was doing in film school. So that, yeah, we were just continuing to observe each other's gifts and support those gifts. And Charlene, I met at the very beginning of the pandemic through an Indigenous women's support circle, and which seems weird because I think I've known her my whole life. Yeah, but we had been establishing a relationship and understanding of each other and our stories, and working on the idea of a project that I had really wanted to do for several years of documenting my elders. So Charlene had met Liz, who is our director, through her networks, and bridged me and Liz together, and I pulled Alfonso in, and yeah, it kind of just bloomed and blossomed from there.
That's fantastic. What a remarkable origin story as well, because it's very rare that I sit here in the seat. I mean, it's so rare that it's never happened before. I sit here in the seat and I'm talking to, you know, 3 collaborators, 3, you know, partners, you know, in the filmmaking storytelling journey. And I think it is remarkable that you did that, and you definitely like forged your own path. And we'll talk about that later on, the process of making it. But I'd love to hear more about, you know, the original goals, you know, for this film. You know, maybe like Charlene, or, you know, Alfonso, will bring you in here as well. I'd love to hear, you know, like, because I asked you like how, but like also why, like why this film, this story with, you know, with this group of people.
Thank you. Well, you know, my personal answer is I was really exploring my own path towards healing, and balancing that with generational healing, which is something my husband and I have been really working on and talking about a lot with our daughter. When I first met Ecko and Alfonso, one of the things that really stood out to me the most was the amazing examples that they are as parents in terms of living a life of intergenerational healing, very consciously and deliberately. And I will let them speak to the other part of, you know, the very big part of this story, but that is probably one of the first things that really attracted me to want to be a part of this story of healing, but also the bridge that we are between one generation and the other, and what our role and our responsibility is in that.
Alfonso, I mean, it's something that we hear, I think, and have heard a lot more about intergenerational trauma than we have about intergenerational healing. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that, you know, for the audience, like what is intergenerational healing, you know, and how because it sounds like we should be talking about it so much more, because it does seem, and we see it in your film, you know, the potential to touch, you know, multiple generations. So yeah, please tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think it kind of relates to the purpose of the film. So it's to educate people around the world about what our elders have gone through, along with all these other elders of that generation and the generations before that. And how can we heal from that? And I think it's sitting down and taking some time and listen to your elders, letting them guide you through your life, and start creating opportunity to bring that culture back and the traditions. That's where I reached out to my elder, Hope Aleck, about canoeing, is to seek that guidance so that I can help not only heal the people who are struggling with the trauma, but also the next generations to to help them understand it's important to be proud and know who you are.
Mm.
There was a time where we were almost wiped out as Indigenous people. That's where I see the intergenerational healing is to continue our culture and practice our traditions and know where we come from.
Oh, you mentioned the elders who, I mean, in a lot of ways, they were your collaborators, in this film as well. If we could fit more boxes on the screen, it would have been wonderful to have them here as well. In order, though, to bring them, into this project, what kind of conversations did you have with each of them? And what was important to them, about either the process of the film or the goals of the film? Ecko, would you like to start that?
For me, this actually initiated with asks from my elders. My dad is one of our featured elders on there, and with the skill sets that I was building through professional recording arts school and all of the digital media tools that I had began to build after that, he had requested that I help him document his story and share it with the world. And parallel with that, my great aunt, so my dad's aunt, had initiated this, but she actually didn't end up being a part of this project. So for me, this conversation was actually an ask from them, and I can't say no to my elders. So
Absolutely not.
just a matter of figuring out how, and it took a couple years of finding the right people and the pathways to actually bring it to life.
Yeah. What about for you, Charlene? Like, what kind of conversations, did you have, in order to, to bring your elder into this project? And what was important, to him?
Yeah. I think the conversations were honestly long form conversations to start, much like we're having right now, in terms of a very different relationship. This is an elder and a friend that is, taking a role in welcoming me back to my community and helping me rebuild ties and culture. Just an amount of patience and teaching. So we really started to meet on a very regular basis, just one on one via Zoom. And all of those conversations were recorded, at first to just listen back for myself, on to the learnings, and then in time just started to really understand what an incredible life of leadership and hardship he had experienced. And he talked a lot about his mother as well, and it just kind of very evolved very, very organically for us that there was a story here to be told. And I always felt that um, his leadership deserved his voice, and his leadership deserved a bigger platform. Um, so from there, it kind of wove into being able to tell this.
That's wonderful to hear. What about for you, Alfonso? What conversations, did you have, with your elders who you brought into this project?
So I have two elders in this mill. I was very fortunate to have that. I would have had probably 10 if I could.
The sequel.
But yeah, first is my grandpa. He was the one that gave me my drum 15 years ago, and I was just a late teenager, and at the time the culture wasn't very very big here, and even still I am one of our main drummers, and but the conversation was, the reason why I was getting my drum was to be a song carrier for my family as they became spirit dancers, and that's a part of their healing, especially my grandmother. Probably had it the worst out of anyone in our family with the the abuse in residential school. So she was initiated as a dancer to help with her spirit to be reborn. And I got the responsibility to start to learn her song so I can sing it for her when she needs me. And that became something where I had a responsibility for my family members who became dancers. I was still young and I was still learning. I learned to gain my confidence with joining a drum group. We created a drum group in the Shishak Nation here, and just started to learn that I had a voice. And then I became that tour guide for TELUS tours, and I was singing on my own, and I built that confidence. And so when I moved back home, and again, I had many conversations with my grandpa, and it was to continue carrying on that culture. And then all these other stories about his politics, and he just loves to be on camera. And he's a very charming man.
Absolutely. I mean, any of the elders you feature in this film, I could watch an entire, 2-hour film about them. But I was like, I mean, when each of them were talking, there were moments I'm like, yeah, like it just, I'm just rooting for all of them. But as far as conversations, then, with your elders, Alfonso, like you mentioned your granddad, but what about Barbara? Like, did you have to, convince her, to participate, or, before you started filming, what was important, to her? Because I love her. I'm obsessed with her. But like I said, she told you what a few times, but, like what was important, that for her, like in order to participate in the project, like what did she want to make sure, you were accomplishing or that people would be seeing?
So when I first approached her, I already had in mind that I'm going to use canoeing and paddling water to help with our healing. And so I went to go visit her one day and knocked on her door and just kind of introduced myself and told her like I'm the traditional wellness coordinator, and she just kind of sat back and looked at me and she's like, "What do you want?" So I had to gain her trust. And I wanted to involve her in the teachings that she was telling me, and I asked her if she could be there for the teachings to share with others as she taught me. And she was more than happy to do that. And she started those teachings for us as we've had our 3rd year of canoe awakenings now. Yeah, and her daughter is the one that now leads those ceremonies, as dear Hope Palich has passed away in last November.
Oh, goodness. I'm sorry to hear that.
Her legacy lives on. So
absolutely. I mean, talk about intergenerational healing in action. Everybody who participated in this shared deeply personal, I mean, they shared their trauma. They spoke, they gave voice to the trauma that they experienced. What did you do as the facilitators, as the producers, to ensure that, I mean, you mentioned the word responsibility, Alfonso, you clearly all felt a responsibility to the elders that you brought into this. What did you do to ensure, that you fulfilled your responsibility to your elders, and also that the process of sharing their stories wouldn't be, re-traumatizing for them? Who would like to take this one to begin?
I want to share one more thing too about patience. So Terry Aleck, that also taught me how to make drums, and that's anything that I've carried on now too. Yeah.
Fantastic. You've all been really changed by by the experience of making this film, eh? And we will get to. I do want to talk about that at length. The changes, within you, as you move forward from this film. But yes, so let's talk a bit about what you did to ensure that the process of sharing, the traumatic stories wouldn't be re-traumatizing for your elders. What did you do?
I can start. And I want to just kind of weave in what we were just talking about our initial conversations with our elders. So we brought all of them together on the Sunshine Coast for an event that Charlene was hosting, and got them in a circle. And even though we had conversations with them, they're still like, so what are we doing? But that circle was important for us to have like a very grounding conversation with them of, this is our official, we are moving forward with this project. We gifted them with blankets and an envelope. We call it a handshake, but we practiced our protocol of gifting blanket, handshake, and medicine as a way to say thank you for exchanging your knowledge, for walking with us on this journey. And it was important from the very beginning that they understood that these stories belong to them. And that was one of the things Barb had brought into that circle, is they needed to be very clear on who these stories belong to, because the film industry is very extractive. And so often the featured participants are not cared for in the process. Mm-hmm. We wanted them to understand that we were trying our best to still dance with the production world and work in a different model than most films are used to seeing. So we started with that as kind of like our grounding initiation of the process together. We didn't get to spend a whole lot of time where all three of us were interviewing each other's elders. We'd have a film crew that would come with just us and our elder. So I imagine each one was a little bit different. Me and my dad, we practice ceremony regularly. He is also a circle facilitator. So we had things like smudge and tea and snacks and blankets and breaks. And he also knows how to use his voice to say, I need to pause for a minute. And those signals were really important to the process. But as his daughter, I was even the little bits that he would voice, I was concerned that wasn't enough. I was concerned about pushing him too far. And as the facilitators, we are also those who have experienced intergenerational trauma. And so it's not just our elders' trauma that we are reliving, it's our own in that process. So there were a lot of moments of feeling like I pushed too far, of both myself and my dad, and a lot of moments of realizing that we actually know how to do this. We know how to have conversations because we've been doing it my entire life. If I were to do it again, I would completely slow down the filming piece. I would span it over like a month and just go and have tea and have a sit down and go, what's the story that you have for me today? Mm-hmm. Working with a production schedule is very colonial and challenging.
Yeah. What about for you, Charlene?
I think for me, because our Chief Wayne and I, our process was quite long and really kind of had very deliberate steps, and it kind of lives on now. We started with these long form conversations, and we started to record podcasts, and we started to really understand kind of each other's rhythm and flow and maybe boundaries. We also created a short film together, just he and I. And so our process was kind of long and expansive and continues to live on. And this story is a collaboration that was part of a much, much longer process. And I think to be honest with you, it's the way that I had to do it. It was the way that he felt good about doing it. Literally, it was a coming home opportunity to my community for the first time ever. So everything was very, very personal. He and I had an agreement, in all of our work together, that we were definitely holding on to light and hope in a heavy topic. We were, and so he's very, he tries to keep things light and is, joking, and I think that really helped, like, with our own process and also the process in the bigger collaboration of the film.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. What you're both describing too is something that's a lot more, it's a collaboration. It's not extractive like a lot of journalism, a lot of documentary filmmaking. As you say, it's very colonial. It's just extractive and then move on. But this is like, maybe the cameras are present for part of it, but this is an ongoing, relationship. And I mean, Ecko, you called it a dance as well, right? Like it's much more than, just creating a film on a production schedule. What about for you, Alfonso? Was it similar to what Ecko and Charlene described?
That's what she needed. She needed that kind of reassurance that her legacy or her dream was going to continue. There was just some struggles in the family, and I kind of came out of nowhere for her and told her what my goal was, and I know that was part of her goal too, was to keep the canoeing alive in our community. So I feel like with that, she was happy before she went on her spiritual journey.
Beautiful. I'd love for each of you to share with me, because I know this is completely unfair, but I love to hear about like favorite filming days, or the days where you close your eyes, you think about the experience of making this film, and you just can't help but smile. You're filled with some all the warm fuzzies, and so can you each tell me like what maybe was your favorite, the most memorable, the one that really brings joy to your heart? We've been starting so much with Ecko. I'm going to start. Maybe we'll start with Charlene this time. We'll start with you, Charlene. Started with you yet.
Well, there was two pieces. Ecko mentioned the event that we had at the kind of the beginning. It really felt. I think a lot of our team was there at this. All of the elders were there. We were there, and it felt kind of almost ceremonial to kind of bring them into the, to make sure that this process felt good to all of them. So that was pretty special for me. And the second, thing that I will say is how the film begins, having the whole team together, including the creators, including all the camera people and all the crew, having a workshop that Ecko held circle for. It felt like a really great starting point, and we got to know everyone on the crew at a deeper level and start to build those relationships. And I think that kind of carried through into the film, which was really special.
Yeah. What about for you, Ecko? You have a smile on your face right now as you were listening to Charlene speak.
That workshop day was my absolute favorite. It was at a beautiful pace. We were in a gorgeous location. We got to go outside. We got to hear little bits of storytelling from everyone. And when I facilitate, I'm really in my magic. So that was definitely, I think, my favorite filming day. A lot of the other pieces were like, we can do this. Yeah. That was probably the more gentle one.
Gentle's good. And you've shown that it is possible. But if you have to do things, at your own pace and, in your own way to do that, it's beautiful. What about for you, Alfonso? When you think about, this film, like what brings a smile to your face?
So there was a conversation that came up. It was, I want to get Barb on the canoe. I was like, you got to be kidding me. 86-year-old elder. That is not a good situation. Even get her foot over the side of the canoe. Well, we went and asked her, do you think you can go for a ride in your canoe? And she said, absolutely. So whether we got that on camera or not, that was one of the most memorable moments of my life, to get her last moment on her canoe. So, and I'm sure she was happy.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely sure that she, and I got to say something else. You talk about legacy and how she impacted people. There was one point in the film, I think I'm going to remember it forever. She was talking about, people think about the kids, but you have to think about also the teens, and I'm like, yeah, they're totally like forgotten in so many different, circumstances. And I have a teenager right now, and I'm like, no, we do have to sit down. We have to listen to them. We have to engage them. So I'm going to be carrying with her in that way with me for always. I need to talk about the three of you doing this film together, collaborating in a practice that, in the colonial system is not, this is not how people work. Tell me about the beauty of the collaboration of the three of you together, and what steps, you took to ensure that, that everybody was heard, and that, that you also, that you kept, strong to the idea, your original intent, with doing it the way that you did. I'm going to start with Alfonso this time. Yeah, I'm going to switch it up.
What I really enjoyed was to hear everyone's stories and get to know everyone's elders more. I think even though it was quick paced, it was good to sit down and just listen and learn. I was kind of happy I didn't have to be behind the camera, because that's very technical and can be very stressful. But I was very glad that I had a lot of say in what came to the editing. I loved how the stories intertwined together, how we all came together. I think it was very healing for myself. I think it was very healing for all the people that were involved. And I think it was healing for our elders as well. So that's what I enjoyed about a production group like this, is where there's healing involved when it comes to a beautiful project like this.
And I don't often hear that from, people who make a film, right? That the process of telling these stories, in this way, for this medium is healing. Usually people need to have some kind of healing after the film is done, but it's beautiful that you were able to do that. And it's probably because of the way that you all set this up to dance together, to work together. What about for you, Charlene and Ecko? Tell me about your experience of this collaboration right here on the screen.
Yeah, there was tough times. There was learning and growing and healing the whole way through, for me personally. And I think that I appreciated being held kind of throughout both. So I don't think you can have growth and learning without some crunchy bits. And there were crunchy bits. But we love each other as individuals, as people, as brothers and sisters, that we got through those. And I think that is, for me, it was a process with lots of deep breaths. And it made me a better person, from the beginning to the end, with a lot of respect for the people that, that I've worked with. So I think, just to answer your question, it was the good, the bad, and the everything in between that, that walked us through the whole process.
And what about for you, Ecko?
Definitely a dance. Yeah, I agree with the crunchy bits, and I agree with the healing pieces. And one of the always intriguing pieces for me, working with a team, working with collaborators, is understanding how people operate, understanding their thought process and their gifts, and how all of our gifts uniquely show up in a space together, and how they learn how to work with each other. And so when things would get crunchy, we would pull, the facilitator in me couldn't resist, would pull all of us into a space and go, okay, we got to lay everything out on the table. We have to just share the truth. Let's get everything out. And because quite often we'll bottle things up, and the things will amplify within us without a healthy pathway or a healthy outlet. And so there was a few times where we would kind of get everything out on the table, and there's a lot of business talk that needed to happen because we're all co-producers. And one of my absolute favorite pieces of every time we would come together like that, Shar, myself, and Liz, and sometimes Patty, and sometimes Ozgun would be bouncing these things, and we'd be vibrating up here, and Alfonso would unmute himself, and he'd come in and go, I'm going to speak now. And he would just pull us right back down to earth. It's just got this calm, no bullshit energy about him. And he would, just okay, we're going to come back down here now. So, and that's, that's his gift. That's his way of showing up in spaces. And so when we understand how we operate together and how those gifts can collaborate, then it makes the process so much smoother, knowing that we can make it through the crunchy bit.
Your family. I mean, you're a family. You're a filmmaker. You've done this. Do you foresee the opportunity or future to make, future projects together?
Anything's possible.
I love to hear that. I won't put you on the spot. I'd love a little bit though more about Liz, who we do spot a few times in the film, and I know that Liz is credited as she's a director, co-writer, producer, executive producer, cinematographer. Liz is a settler of mixed European descent. What were the qualities that she embodied as a non-Indigenous person that made her a good collaborator for this particular project, one that is about intergenerational healing, from the genocide? Who would like to take this one? I'm not going to force anybody.
Alfonso, you can bounce. So Liz is the niece of John and Nancy Denham, who are really good friends with my dad. They're also really good friends with Alfonso's papa. They were really good friends with Barb. So they are settlers and are well known in the Shishak community. And so that the initial introduction to Liz happened through Indigenous protocol of who are you, who do you belong to, who's your family. And by Liz introducing her family, they have done incredible work on reconciliation in the Shishak community. That opened up a little bit for us to have a conversation. But who Liz was in the beginning and who Liz was by the end are almost two completely different people. So this is a director, a settler director who came from Toronto and had very ingrained ways of operating within a film system, right? This is essentially the only way that has been taught through film school, through understanding production, all of those things. So Liz came in with all of these structures in place. And over the course of the film and spending time with our elders and spending time with us, Liz unraveled everything she knew and was just pulling everything apart and going, whoa, okay, so this is not actually how that goes. There's this whole other perspective that I need to build in now. So that process of witnessing Liz pull everything apart, which is the act of decolonization, was my absolute favorite. And I know that was part of the crunchiness sometimes, and the persistence to continue to unlearn and still show up and still have conversations is what made me really, really grateful for her through this project.
I love to hear that. But do you think that it's possible for anybody to do that, or just like somebody who is a settler in the film industry? You know, they need to be open to that, right? Like, it's not just like they can't just be transplanted in. Like, you're like somebody. What you're saying is that Liz was really, even though she came from Toronto, and that she was in the good headspace and with an open heart and was able to go through those crunchy times and do that decolonizing work.
Yeah.
That is wonderful to hear. I want to circle back to something that that Alfonso was alluded to at a certain point, and I did put a pin in it, which is about how you were each of you changed, over the course of making this film together. Maybe you each could respond how this changed you, first, like as artists, in your artistic practice as storytellers, and also, although granted, I get that these are actually very interconnected, as a human being, and within your community, with your family, with your sense of self.
I just want to say something about Liz too.
Absolutely.
So, I have a lot of love and respect for her because, I don't think other directors or big names like herself would actually try to learn different ways. So she was willing to learn and also unlearn. She even went into separately from the film to do ceremony of cleansing herself, and she was also willing, even though she is a vegan, she was willing to go hunting with me and watch me go and harvest a live animal. And we were going to put that in the film, but it was like, I don't think so. So for her to actually make steps like that is huge, and she really gained my respect. I'm really grateful to have such an amazing person like Liz, and she's taught me a lot about the film industry, and not something I'm really interested in getting too deep in. Projects like this for sure, but I know how stressful and chaotic things can get, and I could see how it can stress everyone out, right? Like, you need healing from making films, but for this film, it was healing, like you said.
It was healing. What I love to think too is that Liz going on to other projects then, and hurrying, what the healing that happened, on your film, and then maybe teaching other people how to begin that unlearning process and be like, actually, it does not have to be this way. It can be this way. We don't have to break ourselves in order to to tell the story that we want to tell. I think that, we talked about legacy. Maybe that could be another legacy for for your film as well. Yeah.
Would totally be interested on making a sequel of how life has changed in our journeys, you know. I feel like we're all doing good work, and with the guidance of our elders, it's going to continue that way. So always felt that I was always in a good place when Liz did reach out to me about doing this film. I didn't feel like I needed to do this film. I just did it because she heard about me, I guess. And my focus was not filming. Like, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But to capture what we captured, which was huge, and I appreciate it so much. I would love to capture more stories like this through all of our journeys.
Yeah. So, please, each of you, tell me about the ways that you feel that you've been changed in the process of making this film. I'll start with you, Charlene.
Well, I think it's very much ongoing for me. This is still like a very new journey for me. And coming home to my community is something that started in 2018, and my friendship and my relationship with Winnick Jean has been like completely transformative. And I'm also just at the very beginning. I've been told that I walk differently. I've been told that, how I show up in the world is different. From friends and colleagues that maybe haven't seen me for a while. So I'm completely changed through the work of, with this team, the work that Liz walked beside us on, and all of the caring crew, and mostly through the work with Winnick Jean. And I know it's just kind of continuing. The only thing I can say is um, there has it's like a piece of your soul gets put back in place, a piece of your heart that you didn't even know was missing. That's the only way that I can describe how I've been changed. And 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 hopefully that shows up in how I am in the world, in my relationship with my community, in business. Um, it's something that I continue to work, continue to work at every day. And my work with Winnick continues, on a very regular basis. So just really grateful.
Absolutely beautiful. What about for you, Ecko? This film, I mean, we got to see some very moving moments between you and your dad. I can only imagine. Well, I can imagine, that experience of, tattooing, his skin and having those conversations, and in the context of this larger film, which was a collaboration experience, that it was, paradigm shifting, healing. How did it change you?
I have been digesting my dad's story and speaking his story and my story since I was about 11. And there's always been this like fierce advocacy, warriorship that has kind of led the way. And the release of this film, the best way I can describe it is like it took the last bit of that fierceness with it. Like his stories out there in the world, the story about intergenerational healing is out there in the world. And I've really noticed, especially in the last couple months, just this like craving to sink into softness. I have been fighting to be heard for so long. and fighting to have my dad's story told for so long, that there's just this like a giant exhale that's happening of, you did it, you did the work, it's out there. If there's more that comes from that, that's great, but I've let go of like the reins of feeling like I have to push anymore. And I can't even tell you like the relief in my body of being able to sink into my like gentle auntie stage instead of this fierce warrior youth stage that I'm coming out of. Yeah, and I'm still coming to terms with what that means. But I'm witnessing how it's showing up in every area of my life, that that fierceness to fight is like dwindling. Want to hold space and love and support the healing. And so that's a huge, huge internal shift.
Oof. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. What about you, Alfonso? How was the experience of making this film, having these conversations, this collaboration, this family you have, the film family? How has it changed you?
Feeling a little bit more famous and noticed. Also has pushed me away from wanting to get in the film industry. So it's just stress and chaos is not the part. But yeah, like I said, the healing, man, like the healing was, I wasn't expecting that much healing from it. I loved how the stories intertwined, and yeah, the proudness of it, the pride. I'm grateful for our elders to share their teachings, and also to be able to be vulnerable. And that goes for all of us. To let the world in to see that, you know, we are on our journeys and we are here to help with our healing, with our elders' healing. Yeah, I appreciate the connections and the relationships that I got from this film, and I'm glad the legacy has been captured on film, especially for Hope Illich right now, because she just recently passed. My grandpa, he probably already felt he already had a legacy that he's already had, but I'm sure this is going to help with his too. And I'll continue on with what I'm doing.
Fantastic. We are coming to the end of our time together today. For our final question, I'm going to ask each of you this question. I'd love to hear each of your response. How would you like people to feel when the credits are rolling on s-yéwyáw AWAKEN? Or what kind of questions would you like them to ask? What kind of conversations would you like to inspire? You know, end credits are rolling. What would you like? What about you, Ecko?
I want them to feel like it's just the bow of the canoe. Like it's just the bow of the canoe that kind of breaks the water, and they're feeling the ripples, but they're going, okay, but what's next? What's coming from this? Or what momentum can I carry forward from this feeling that I'm having? My hope is that it inspires both individual healing that the audience will take home. They'll take conversations home to their kitchen table, because that's where we witness true change happening. And this, like, on the other hand, they'll have this sense of hope of healing, of that forward momentum that we need, and something to grasp onto for the insane times that we are in right now.
What about you, Alfonso?
When people are sitting there watching the credits, not to notice the mistakes.
No mistakes. No mistake.
That was my but it's okay. The other part, appreciate all the work, all the people that put into this film. And yeah, it was a lot of people. For the Q&As, I think we need longer Q&As because I don't like being cut short when I have so much to say. And yeah, that's it.
That's good. All right, Charlene, final word to you.
When the credits roll, kind of to play off of Ecko's analogy, I would like everyone to understand that they're so holding a and that we all have a responsibility to do healing so that as adults and parents, our children are on a healing trajectory. That's our biggest job of this generation, is to heal. So we all have a role to play. We're all in this canoe. We're all paddling together, and we really hope that we can demonstrate, even in a small way, what might be possible and encourage people to want to take next steps.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for being here today. And thank you for listening to and watching the TELUS Originals DocTalks, and to our guests, Ecko Aleck, Alfonso Salinas, and Charlene SanJenko. Watch TELUS Originals documentaries at TELUS Optik TV Channel 8 and watch.telusoriginals.com, and follow us at TELUS Originals on Instagram. DocTalks are a production of TELUS Originals. This episode was produced by Sharon Bradley with technical support by Matt Waterworth. Ken Soy is the production executive for TELUS Originals DocTalks. DocTalks are produced on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. The viewpoints expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of TELUS.